I've now been an entrepreneur for more than 22 years. I studied engineering, thinking that I'm probably going to go into a tech role. I spent some time in a tech role and I said, oh my God, this is not for me. So this is to call out to all the students who think, they need to stay on with the same career that they think they should be doing. It's not necessary because we can all pivot. So sales is what really kind of intrigued me. I worked for a couple of very large companies, including ICL in India. And before I decided it was time to start my own business. It was in 1997 that I launched my first company. This was Nastrack. Like many young people who will relate to this, we would never save any money. So I had $1,000 and I said, great, I have $1,000 to invest in my business. How do we do this? So I spent $800 in buying a computer and $200, I still remember that massive Motorola phone. And I said, great, now I've got my office equipment. I told my husband to move his car out of the garage, moved a table in and literally started from that. So I have very fond memories and I'm glad I did that. This was in 1997. From India, we expanded to Europe. Then we expanded to UK. And in 2005, I moved to Singapore. It was, I think, in the last 4 or 5 years that, of course, when, with all the talk about AI and digitalization, data science, I guess you cannot take the geek out of an engineer, right? So I said, okay, it's time. So that's how I formed Zopa in 2017 in Singapore. The whole motto behind that was obviously to, first of all, use all the learning of a traditional business and deploy that into making it a digital business. So that's been my journey. I'm of course, really grateful that I would never trade not being an entrepreneur. I'm married. I've got 2 children. My elder son is 26. My younger one's 23. So that's me. Well, of course, COVID is something that nobody was prepared for, and it was completely out of the blue. Now, if we just step back, let's say a year or two, things had already started to get disruptive in the recruitment space, isn't it? People were adopting technologies, companies were moving towards digitization. And I think the companies who were a little bit ahead in their path with digitization found it very, very easy to pivot, without much struggle. But of course, there are a lot of other companies who were not digitized. So think about them. We take it for granted, work from home. But there are lots of industries which don't know how to work from home. There's been a lot of chaos from that perspective. So one thing is, I think generally and universally, people have now said that, okay, there's one thing that you need to be prepared with is digitization. Because today you have pandemic and we don't know when COVID is going to go, but tomorrow there could be some other disruption. So I think the boost that digitization has got during COVID is the positive impact of COVID. A lot of recruitment was being done very, very subjectively. And I'm not saying before COVID, I'm saying since second revolution, second industrial revolution. I think industrial revolution 1, 2, 3, 4 have come and gone, and hiring has been a very, very subjective process. And so it's only been in the last couple of years where people have started to even think about using AI for hiring. And I'm going to give you a little anecdote here. When I started Zopa, when my co-founder and I started to work on this concept, that how can we make this highly human, industry a science? And he said, absolutely. He's this absolutely fantastic PhD professor at National University of Singapore. And he said, oh, absolutely, we can do this. And then we started to talk to the clients. And, everybody used to look at us and say that, are you serious? How can you make something so human with AI? obviously, there are certain industries which are getting wiped out. I mean, the jobs are we don't even have the measure of the jobs that have gone. On the other hand, the digital tech companies are hiring because they want to meet the demands and and move with the times. The way I think it's going to change is, one, you will have to rely on tools which kind of are beyond human. So you can augment it. Ultimately, the human will take the decision on who should be hired, and they can overrule the decision of the machines. But without machines, companies are going to be left behind. Your competitors are going to pick up the best people, while you are still trying to kind of figure out. I think the very first thing that you need is courage. Courage is the biggest thing that an entrepreneur requires. I think you need to be fearless. You need not to be worried always on the downside. You kind of you got to be balanced, of course, and pragmatic, but you should see the glass half full rather than half empty. You need to have the courage. So you also have to be aware of the era that you are trying to be a business person in. So you need to realize your ecosystem. What is the game that you're trying to play? So if you have an idea, first of all, what are your unique selling propositions? Why should somebody even try your product? And what are you trying to achieve? So I think that whole understanding of ecosystem, your concept, the disruption you're trying to create, and that whole idea needs to be thought through. So you don't want, you can decide that, okay, I want to be one of many players and do what the others are doing better. Or I go into a blue ocean strategy and I completely take a new path that nobody else has done. And I think if you look at the disruptions, most of them are blue ocean strategies, because they're taking physical problems in the real world, trying to resolve them with technology. So if anything, our business has grown in COVID. There's a lot of demand for it. Suddenly it gave a shot in the arm to us, big time. But I have seen September 11th. I've seen the dot-com bubble burst. So I've been there for a long time. So I think what you need to kind of tell yourself is that this too shall pass. Nothing stays there forever. Like, you cannot get freaked out about something. If you are on a solid plan and you are on a solid product and your solution is amazing, you've got to, again, it goes back to courage. But the other thing that I learned is that, cash is king. You can control your expenses, but you cannot control your income. And when some crisis like this happens and suddenly the market goes flat, or there's some compression, you have to build that into your plan. So you need to, as a business owner, without being too morbid about it, you need to, in a very positive way, say that should something happen, am I ready for those crises? Because you don't want to get wiped out one fine day, right? So I think you have to have very tight control over cash. You have to have you have to spend sensibly, but of course you have to spend where it helps the revenues and growth and all of that. I think if you are a leader of tomorrow, the most important thing is the culture and the values that you probably are trying to create in your company. A lot of companies, when they start up, your biggest fear, your biggest focus, and rightly so, is about, okay, I've got an idea, I want the best product, I want the best sales, I want my clients, and that should be the first priority. But as you start hiring your first person, your second person, your third person, I think it's really important that you also focus on the culture of the company and take time out to ensure that, whatever values you stand for, whether as a company or whether as individual leaders, you are very clear about it and you articulate it to every person who's being hired. So even today, even if we are hiring intern in our company, I make sure that I spend 15 minutes of interview time with them in any part of the world, just so that I can voice those values and culture myself, so that it goes down the line. And I think it's up to the leader to practice what you preach. You have to be what you want your company to be. So if you are expecting honesty, and if you're expecting forthrightness, or you believe in openness, transparent culture, then you need to be that yourself. And you need to practice that. The other thing I would say is, I believe truly in the power of being very candid in the company, very vocal about how you feel, how others feel, and encourage feedback, and encourage, I wouldn't say criticism, but feedback in a positive way, or criticism in a respectful way. And everybody should feel comfortable about voicing it in your weekly meetings or your monthly meetings that you do as a leader. You'll be surprised to know that you don't have all the answers. So, you are not the only person with a lot of mega ideas. Each of those minds that you have in your team probably are bimmering, they're shimmering, they're working with you. There's a reason they're working with you, because they are entrepreneurial and they want to be part of an energetic, passionate. So give them that space and hear them out. You'll be surprised how our interns, because they come with so much fresh minds, and we highly encourage them before they even get into a slot, that come on, we want to hear from you what the ideas are. So encourage that. You never know what kind of $1 million idea might come from there. So I think culture, values, and again, I would say, just do the right thing, and be passionate about what you're doing. At the end of the day, it's all about being happy and being satisfied, and you have to derive self-worth and a sense of purpose from whatever you're doing, and remember, every person who's working with you is also aiming for that. So be mindful of that, both for yourself and for your team.